Welcome to the Geekcentric podcast, and welcome to our spoiler-free review for Star Wars: Tales of the Empire. Long live the Empire. Hello, I'm J-Law, but you can call me Justin, and if you're joining us for the first time, well, we are Geekcentric, a podcast covering the world of movies, TV shows, toys, collectibles, gaming, and all things geek-centric, and all things Star Wars, as we are here for this spoiler-free review for Tales of the Empire. Joining me are two dudes who are too nice to be on the dark side of anything. Nate Shelton, Darcy Hudson. How we doing, boys?
Let's get a story with that guy, Justin. Do we have a Tales of Naboo?
Sure.
Right? Tales of the Gungans?
Do you want Boss Gungan to have an origin story?
Dude, Boss Nass origin story. I'm telling you, he's all fit. He's like ripped.
Yeah.
When he's a kid, like when he's younger.
Yeah, and then you get like the sort of behind the scenes of what it was like for him to become king and lead the people of Gungan. Yeah,
Bro,
it's interesting.
I'd watch that all day. He deals with depression. Like, that would be great.
I don't need that Star Wars story.
Yeah, I think that would be a short story, like these episodes that we've been gifted. Before we actually start talking about Tales of the Empire, I actually had a question in and around the format of this show. This is kind of a season 2. Last time we had Tales of the Jedi, again, another 6-episode series. But these episodes ranged anywhere as short as 11 minutes and as long as 15 minutes. And the same is here with Tales of the Empire. So I wanted to ask before we started talking, how do you guys feel about this format of sort of short, snackable stories contained within this sort of 6-episode series?
I actually kind of really dig them. I think we talked about this, Darcy, back when we reviewed Tales of the Jedi, and I think it's nice. I think it's nice to sort of get these little tiny stories, 45 minutes, I guess, technically long, and it's kind of all that you need in certain instances. I don't know. I think it's great. I think, again, I'd love to see them expand the Tales of universe and kind of give us Tales of the Rebellion, give us, I think there's a lot more that they could do.
Mm-hmm. I really enjoy this format. Sometimes the characters they choose, I don't necessarily agree with, because the stories they explore sometimes, already wrapped up where we left off when we last saw the characters. So it's pick and choose the characters. I think going forward, there are some characters out there that definitely need some more time to be explored and given this at least catch up, because it feels like these tales are really filling in the pockets that we don't really know about a lot of the popular characters, which is probably my favorite part about them, is that we're getting these unknown snippets and how they got from point A to point B based on where we see them in certain situations. So that's really cool.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that this format really does work well. It's not overly, it doesn't take a lot for us as fans to invest in, but it's giving us so much. It's giving us so much in terms of the background of characters that we know and love from a galaxy far, far away. But I do agree with you. I think that the choice of where we pick up some of these characters in the timeline does differ. It's more specific to Tales of the Empire, and I will elaborate as we get into it. But let's get our listeners up to speed about what we're talking about today. As I mentioned, Star Wars: Tales of the Empire is a 6-episode journey into the fearsome Galactic Empire through the eyes of two warriors on divergent paths, set during different eras. After losing everything, young Morgan Elsbeth navigates the expanding Imperial world towards a path of vengeance, while former Jedi Barriss Offee does what she must to survive a rapidly changing galaxy. The choice they make will define their destinies. This stars Diana Lee Inosanto, Meredith Salinger, Raya Kitstead, Wing T. Chow, Lars Mikkelsen, Jason Isaac, and Matthew Wood. This is created by the one and only Dave Filoni, who's also supervising director on this, as well as executive producer, along with Athena Yvette Portillo and Carrie Beck. Music done by, if you don't know them and you're in the Star Wars animated space, like, hello, the Kiners, Kevin Kiner, Sean Kiner, and Deanna Kiner, the Kiner family. All 6 episodes of Tales of the Empire will debut exclusively on Disney Plus May the 4th. May the 4th be with you. A huge thanks to our friends at Disney Studios Canada and Disney Plus Canada for letting us check out these episodes early so we can get you our review nice and early. Now, with that out of the way, let's get into talking about Tales of the Empire. You know, as we were talking about, the format is kind of very indicative of sort of the enjoying the experience of it. But you know, your impressions of these stories, as I mentioned in the synopsis, we're looking at a young Morgan Elsbeth. We're looking at you know, the journey of Barriss Offee after the events of being detained for her treason against the Jedi Council. You know, how did you guys? What was your initial impressions about these stories that we got?
Yeah, I mean, I was really looking forward to going into at least Barriss Offee's story because, again, we don't know where she ended up. Her ties to Ahsoka are so strong, and the paths were so similar. It was really interesting to kind of find out where she went after we last saw her. So I loved her aspect of it. Morgan Elsbeth, again, she's a character, one of the characters. I was like, this one, we know how her story ends, and I feel like this is almost too little, too late. We're almost getting like a Black Widow treatment where we're getting her origin story after her story's finished, and it feels, while it was cool to get some of those insights as to why she made the decisions she did, again, I feel like there are other characters that could have a more impact in the future, that we could have explored their past a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
But I did like how the paths that we do see, there's a lot of similarities
Yes,
about them.
and that seems to
And
be
I
the
like
theme for
that.
the tales, because we got that last
Right.
season too.
And so I think, you know, Morgan is, you know, we're not so fresh off Ahsoka, but we're fresh off Ahsoka, right? As far as in the mindset of people. I think Barriss Offee, if you're going into this series and you're hoping for more from the Barriss Offee story, you're going to get more from the Barriss Offee story than you will from the Morgan Elsbeth story. And that was, I wanted a little bit more from that Morgan Elsbeth side.
I totally agree with you. I think because we're so close to so close in proximity to Ahsoka and Morgan Elsbeth's story, it sort of feels like whatever these stories should have been, they should have been more overarching. You know, like the first episode to the second episode, there's a big gap of space, but it doesn't feel like there's too much of a difference between episode 2 to 3, other than just a sort of a shift in power, if you will. But at the end of the day, her story felt far more open-ended. Like more could be added to Morgan Elsbeth's story to tell more about her journey, whereas the Barriss Offee story, you know, it feels very conclusive to a part of her journey. Like there's more, like there's always more story to tell. Like just like with Tales of the Jedi, you know, with Ahsoka's story, it was one part of a story in her bigger story.
Yeah.
And I love that, you know, that those 3 episodes started and ended that arc, if you will. Same with Count Dooku's story as well, to see how he transitioned to the dark side. But yeah, I do think that Barriss's story is stronger of the two. But I totally agree with you, Nate. I think the way they've depicted both sides of their stories, very much like Tales of the Jedi. You see the parallels between, you know, their journeys and what is motivating them. What motivates them is more or less the influence of the Empire rather than the Empire itself, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And I that's like, I think, one of the most beautiful aspects about it. And obviously, you know, we love poetry in our Star Wars storytelling. So yeah, it totally works. And I think the tricky thing though, and obviously, you know, I'm not going to harp on the Morgan side too much. Again, there's some gorgeous imagery. We'll talk about the visuals, but I did want to just sort of, I guess what's frustrating about it is that, like you said, Justin, we're fresh off of you know, seeing Morgan, and Darcy. You said we know where her story ends, and the problem is, for me, is, you know, this still leaves room for more stories with her, but the format of this show doesn't seem to be doing that, right? It's or at least it seems anthology. Like, I don't know if this is Tales of the Jedi season 2, if this is Tales of season 2, if there's going to be a Tales of the Empire season 2, and then if there is, personally, as much as I just said I'd like to see more of that Morgan Elsbeth story, I kind of think there's more exciting areas within the Empire that we could explore, right? And
just
so I think
up your mind, man. What do you want?
but I just mean, like, for in that sense, that's where some of that frustration can come into play, where you kind of I don't see them going back anytime soon to give us some of those things.
Yeah, I don't think that we're going back to see more of Morgan Elsbeth. I just wish that last episode was something else
Mhm.
than what we got. I think the I understand the lapse in time and why they landed where they did, but it really visually just didn't feel like we moved at all, other than, just again a time shift. So
Kind of two
yeah, you're right. Like,
locations.
well, not even. It's the same location, right? Like,
Mhm.
Sure.
it is the exact
Oh yeah.
exact same location, right? It's
Yeah.
just years have changed,
Hmm.
right? So again, all this to say that you're right. They're not going to go back. I don't think that they're going to go back and tell more stories of Morgan. Um, and that's what I feel like is so unneat, is untidy about her story. It doesn't feel as conclusive as the other ones have, like
Yeah.
as Ahsoka story, Count Dooku's, and even Barris's. Like, it,
Hmm.
it feels like it's very much a to be continued. Let's see more. And I don't know how well that worked for me in regards to that. But let's talk about the visuals, because again, the visuals, this being in the animated space, there's so much more opportunity to bring things to life outside of what's possible with live action. And again, the Lucasfilm Animation, they hit it out of the park. They did it. I think the biggest standout for me was the emphasis on choreography and
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
the choreography within fight sequences, both within Morgan Elsbeth's story and within Barris's. I think you can actually really see there was a very high level focus on that in both stories.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true, and I think Barris is moving in ways that let's just say if you've watched the Acolyte trailer, like if some of that choreography got you stoked, you're gonna dig some of these fight sequences with Barris and with Morgan as well. There's an incredible moment with her as well, and that's what Diana Lee is known for, and what the character is known for. I think the lighting is another thing I wanted to mention. Pay attention to the skies in all of these episodes. Anytime you see the sky, it just is very indicative of where the character is, and it's really beautifully done. It looks like a painting at times. And then I also got to shout out the dirt, and I know, Darcy, you're a huge fan of dirt, but there is a moment where Morgan, and it's in the trailer, she like slams her fist, young Morgan slams her fist down in this like grainy dirt, and it looks like the best dirt I've ever seen in Star Wars animation. So even better than the dirt that Omega picks up in Bad Batch. Like, it's absolutely fantastic, and I just they seem to somehow up their game every time we interact with Lucasfilm
Mhm.
Animation. It's incredible.
Yeah, and I think you're saying up their game, and again, this being another animated project with Barris Offee in particular being someone that lived in animation, just seeing how far the character model has come in the years since Clone Wars and to now, it's incredible. And again, also something like we see Thrawn in Elsbeth's story, and just again seeing his the advancement they've made with his character model, how he almost looks more like the live action, and the way they bring the live action over is it's such a beautiful blend and inspired by both the live action and the old animation side. It's such a great place to be in right now. I love it.
Well, because they both are sort of so tied to each other narratively. What happens in live action affects animation, and what's happening in animation
Right.
will affect live
Mhm.
action, so on and so forth. They are influencing each other on a aesthetics. We've talked about it countless times in terms of just the idea of putting the camera in the situation and really giving more of a elevated cinematic experience that feels like the Star Wars movies that we experience, that we've been in. But that said, you're absolutely right. I think things look like, especially for Thrawn, if we're going to call that out, his look is far cleaner, and it does feel more inspired by Lars Mikkelsen than previously.
Mhm.
It feels like it's definitely meant to, especially even in the way they've designed animated Morgan Elsbeth. It looks very much like Diana Lee,
Mhm.
and I think that's great that they're putting that level of attention to it, because I think it'd be very easy for some animation series. Well, it's animation. We can have it look somewhat, but we can, obviously alter it to a certain degree. But I think they're very keen on trying to maintain and keep it to look and feel the exact way that these characters would look and feel in in live action. But yeah, again, the animation. At this point, we should just stop talking about it because it's always stellar, right?
It's
Like
always
it's
good.
always
Yeah.
just fantastic. But given the fact that you called out the lighting, Nate, given the fact that it's Tales of the Empire, things are dark, and things get a little, very shadowy, very red light, very high contrast. But then there is some moments of serene beauty, and you look for those moments. We've been talking about all these different characters. Let's talk about the performances. Especially given the fact that Diana Lee as Morgan Elsbeth, coming from live action into animation, she embraces it so well, and it really does translate her live action persona into this animated character flawlessly. It was perfect. I guess you could call it like sort of regal.
It's the cold, calculating nature to her that just came through
Yeah,
so much. And a lot of that
exactly.
comes down to the fact that
Yeah.
it paired so well with the animation team. Again, the inspiration from live
Mhm.
action, they picked up on all her subtle flaws and the way she carries herself, and it translates so beautifully in this show. Like she again, you don't miss a beat with Morgan Elsbeth, and she's stepping right back into the role, and you feel it as much as you would if she was fighting the Mando in season 2. Like it's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, and I wanted to shout out, and I'm trying to
Shout it out.
I'm trying to look it up, but I can't get into my my app to look up the credits here. And IMDb doesn't seem to have it. I don't know if it was Diana who also did young Morgan Elsbeth or not.
No, that wasn't her. That was someone else. She was in that episode, and I think she played one of the older characters by the name of Selena. But I don't know who did the voice for the young Morgan Elsbeth.
Whoever that is. Holy
Mhm.
crap, did they do such a good job with the voice match
Mhm.
to Diana, to Morgan Elsbeth. Hearing the cadence in which she speaks, it's so impressive where sometimes it can sort of take you out of it when you see a younger character and you're just kind of like, or you hear a younger version of a character and you're like, that's not them. But she was
Mhm.
Morgan Elsbeth, and it was really, really well done.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it was really well done. Also, let's talk about the return of
Meredith, yeah.
Salinger. Like it doesn't seem like she really forgot
Mhm.
the voice of Barris, or even just the inflection, because like as we've been talking about, like these 3 episodes are over a course of time, so we see a natural change in the character. So where we pick up with her in the first one is shortly after being sort of arrested and detained for her treason against the Jedi Council, and her voice is obviously very succinct to the moments in Clone Wars, but you hear the age, her sort of age up in each of the following episodes, and her sort of
The
mature in a lot of
wisdom.
ways,
You
which I
feel the wisdom grow for
yeah,
sure.
exactly, right? Like something like it's definitely shaped her in a lot of ways, and kudos to Meredith for just being able to add that from a voice perspective, like to be able to nail a sense of, as you so well put, Darcy, wisdom in your voice. I thought that was really, really great.
Yeah, especially if you pair it to, like you said, when we saw her in the Clone Wars, and especially that first
Mhm.
episode, she's very, it's, I want to say naive, but not naive, almost insecure. She's very unsure of herself and where she stands and where to believe, what side she's on, stuff like that. And then just as you go on this journey with her, as she learns more about herself, again, that wisdom comes through with each episode. You see her getting wiser and learning more about where she stands in the galaxy, and it's again, the performance is beautiful.
Yeah, I'm gonna chime in on that. I just want to quickly say, Kathy Ang is the young Morgan Elsbeth, so kudos to her for nailing that performance. But yes, no, Meredith coming back to this role after 10 years away is awesome. Like, it's so stellar, and I know voice actors are incredibly talented at what they do, so it shouldn't come as like a surprise. But it's just so great to have this character back. And again, this is a character that it's like does Ahsoka live? Ahsoka lives. Okay, we got that out of the way. Where's Ezra? Oh, there's Ezra. Okay, we got that out of the way. And finally, Dave has seemingly broken down and given us
The what happened to Barris.
more of the Barris story, because that is just something that fans have wanted for so long. And yeah, Meredith
Sure.
just absolutely she kills it. And yeah, I thought she did a great job.
Yeah, she was definitely the yin to the yang of Ahsoka, right? Like the two have such a tied history with one another
Mm-hmm.
that it feels like it feels like we probably should have gotten this with the Ahsoka story in Tales of the Jedi, but I understand that there's more of an Imperial influence in this story, so it makes sense to kind of drive it. But again, what I think is really interesting about both of these stories, more or less, is rather than it being about the Empire, it's more about the influence of the Empire. It's
Mhm.
and that to me was the most interesting part about it. Is I thought I was going to sit down and be watching stories told from the Empire's perspective, but it wasn't necessarily. It was more or less the layers of how the Empire has affected these two
Mm-hmm.
characters and kind of driven them down these paths of either, as the synopsis says, for Morgan Elsbeth, vengeance, or the idea of trying to survive for Barris. Like, it's not necessarily as simple as, oh, it's just stories of the Empire. No, it's more about how the Empire has impacted these characters.
And the way that the Empire presents choices and options, and it's what you choose to do with those options. And I think that's
Sure.
that's absolutely true of
Yeah.
these two stories. And
Yeah.
it's, again, we love our Star Wars poetry. We love when they mirror, when they rhyme,
Yeah.
as George
Yeah.
would say.
As George would say. Yeah, like I mentioned in the voice cast list, Lars Mikkelsen is back. We've had him as Thrawn all these years. We had him as live action. Now he's back in this. But the real surprise and delight, I thought, was bringing back Jason Isaac for the Inquisitor, and just to hear his voice coming back so many years later. I loved it. Again, kudos to Lucasfilm and the entire team for just really trying to get these voices back for these characters, because it really does make all the difference, and really does hit home the importance of each of these characters.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And it's kind of nice because it's almost like they're saying this is for the animated fans, because they could go the route of bringing in, was it Rupert Everett who did the
Yeah,
Grand
that's who I was
Inquisitor
wondering. Yeah.
in Obi-Wan. So it was nice
Mhm.
Yeah.
to, again, nice surprise to hear Jason Isaac's voice when you see the Grand Inquisitor again, again
Mhm.
in animation. So that was really fun.
Right. Yeah, it was cool. It's definitely very cool. As I mentioned as I was going through the sort of breakdown here, the Kiners, the Kiner family
Oh,
has come back to do the music again with a banging soundtrack
so
that
good.
is just both haunting yet hopeful. Like, I don't understand. Like, they really understand as a trio how to tell the story of Star Wars through the mood of music. Like, it's so uh powerful. Like, even just coming off of something like The Bad Batch, right, with season 3, and just the nuances of emotion that come through in the music, and the way the subtle themes hit at specific times. Like, there's a great moment where we hear a very popular theme, and it's just very subtly layered in to some moments, and it's saying something without having to actually say it.
Hmm.
So the music adds that signature of being that.
Yeah, when the music can help to tell the story, is phenomenal, and that's what the Kiners seem to do best. It blows me away every single time. It's just like the animation. The music somehow gets better and better and better. They're quickly becoming maybe one of my favorite Star Wars composers for sure. And
Well, the list isn't very long, but, like, yeah,
there's a
it's
decent amount of people.
well, there's people that have come in, but I think, like,
Sure.
there's people that have been fairly, like John Williams and the Kiners are probably the most consistent,
Yeah,
Hmm.
I
right?
agree.
Whereas then you've had Ludwig, you've had Natalie Holt come in,
Yeah.
you've had Nicholas Bertel for Andor come in, but the Kiners have now not only been on the animated side, they've now found a way into live action, having done all the musical compositional work for Ahsoka,
Hmm.
Hmm.
right? So I do think that they're becoming like a sort of a household name when it comes to the Star Wars family, if you will. But that said, music from any realm of the lovely composers that we get always influences and always impacts. But I know what you mean, though. It's really great to hear something that feels more. It feels inspired by the past of what Williams has done, but it also feels very forward
Yeah.
in the way new music is now sort of an emotive tool beyond just sort of cinematics. It's a mood, it's a vibe, and I think that the Kinders definitely know how to do that.
Yeah, 100%. Like you said, they were inspired by John Williams, and they've taken his
Hmm.
motifs and the themes that he managed to weave so intricately throughout his time at the movies, and again, they're turning up to 11 and taking that to the next level with, again, how music is going forward and how they're using new sounds and new inspirations to retell these popular motifs in situations where you wouldn't expect them. And it's such a delight. They are, again, to me, I feel like if we watch Star Wars animation and it's not the Kinders doing the sound, it won't be the same, because they capture that fantastical and whimsical quality of the music being a character, and it's so well
Hmm.
done.
Yeah, I really hope they're I think they're locked in at this point. I think everything animation going forward will be them,
Yeah.
hopefully. But no, I mean, geeks, we love visual callbacks and we love audio callbacks and music callbacks. And you guys are
Hmm.
absolutely right. The fact that they're able to not necessarily say, here's the theme that here's Jar Jar's theme, whatever. They don't do that. But but they manage to deliver it in a way that still works for what you're watching in that moment, but then can bring you back to that place and at the same time put you in the mindset of the character that you're looking at on screen. It's so cool. And yeah, just damn, they're so good.
Yeah. Well, on that note, I think it's time that we wrap this up. If you guys have any final thoughts, I'd love to hear them. But we are going to be rating this on a score of 1 to 5 galactic fleets. Darcy, why don't we start with you?
Sure thing. I mean, I really enjoyed this series, and while I didn't enjoy where Morgan's story ends up, the stories we did get were an interesting eye opener into her past, and figuring out why she is the way she is, which is really cool. But Barris's story was incredible. Again, we finally got the answer to what happened to her after she was imprisoned, and everything after that. So it was so cool to see. I'm really looking forward to more stories in this Tales of series, because these deep dives, or semi deep dives, I guess, into these characters and the why they are the way they are, and just the way they pair them with these parallel journeys, is always a delight. And I can only imagine that going forward, the stories we get will be just as fulfilling. Again, the soundtrack is great. The animation is incredible. The only thing I have to take away from the series that really upset me was the fact that Morgan's story did not end off the way I wanted it to. There's still more from her I want to get, but it feels too late to explore that route. So for that reason, I'll be giving this series a 4.5 out of 5 Galactic Fleets.
Yeah, I think I'm in a very similar place. I think it's really tough when you've got a series called Tales of the Jedi that focuses on Ahsoka and Count Dooku with Padawan Qui-Gon Jinn. It's tough to kind of have that in your mind because they're both the tales of, and then go into this and those characters are so big, so huge, whereas these ones, granted, absolutely we've wanted to see Barris, they're not the same
Hmm.
caliber. And so it's always interesting to sort of see, as you guys said, it'll be interesting to see who they sort of focus on in future versions of these tales of stories. But I think a really decent amount of this story did work for me, whereas a little bit did fall short, like we've talked about. Yeah, visuals, music. I mean, we said it already. I'm going to go with 4.5 out of 5 galactic fleets. But more, please, more tales of, like, honestly, if Dave Filoni's listening to this, if he probably just goes to sleep, has a bad sub that night, dreams, he has a little bit of a nightmare. Boom, 5 more Tales of series. Let's go. Like, let's make it happen.
Well, yeah. So going off of what you guys are saying, I'm totally with you. I do think that of these two stories, Morgan Elsbeth's stories feels a little bit weaker because it just doesn't feel as conclusive as Barris or as the Ahsoka story or as Count Dooku's. Again, we know that there's more story to tell for these characters in their journey, but for these 3 episodes that we got in Tales of the Jedi and now here at Tales of the Empire, their stories felt very conclusive, whereas Morgan's felt like an ellipsis. Like, it felt like there's more story to tell, there was more to explore, and other parts of her journey that I think that 3rd episode could have dealt with, that I personally would have loved to seen. And I think that this would have been the best opportunity to do it, rather than saying maybe we'll come back to it, maybe we'll do more. There is a chance that we could see Morgan Elsbeth live on in some sort of animated form we don't know the plans for Lucas Animation, so who knows if that's something that they're sort of thinking about
True.
as well. But that said, I do think that what this does really, really well, like Tales of the Jedi, is it fills in the holes. It fills in the background, and tells us more about these characters. And I like that the characters could be as big as Ahsoka or as small as I guess Barriss or
Ponda Baba
Morgan
and Dr. Evazan.
See, so
That's
like that's what I mean.
want.
Like,
did they go to the
yeah,
hospital after? Like, did they go to a medic after he lost
Tales
his
of the
arm?
Cantina.
Like, dude,
yeah, exactly.
bro.
Tales of the Cantina would be pretty
I
sweet.
want it.
There's a lot of options, and I think that that's what's really refreshing about this whole format, which is why I kind of started the conversation there. Is that this format, we're in a sort of period now with television shows being, anywhere 20 minutes to 40 minutes. There's 10 episode runs, and this is really nice. It feels different from anything else. It's 3 episodes at most, 15 minutes, and they overarch a theme. They're meant to work together as one to tell one story, but they're broken up into 3 parts so that you can experience it in that way as the chapters in this character's
there's no room
journey.
for filler, right? Like there's not
Exactly.
You don't get
There's not, no.
a 10 episode season and go, I could have done without 4 of those episodes, right?
Exactly.
Like, yeah.
So it's very direct, it's very simple, and I think that format really works, and that's what really stands out about Tales of the Empire, is continuing what Tales of the Jedi did so well and just giving us these sort of offshoot stories that fill in the blanks. So while I wasn't totally impressed with Morgan's story, I was blown away by the continuity of keeping the animation really, really well, the focus on choreography, the lighting, the music, all the things we just talked about. So for those reasons, I'm going to be giving this a 4 out of 5 galactic fleets.
You almost forgot your own fleet.
I almost forgot my own score, guys. I just forgot it, yeah. Well, that is it for this spoiler-free review for Star Wars Tales of the Empire. Again, a huge thanks to our friends at Disney Studios Canada and Disney Plus Canada for giving us these episodes early so we can get our review to you early. All 6 episodes of Tales of the Empire will premiere exclusively on Disney Plus as of May the 4th. So go check that out this Saturday. But we hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, feel free to let us know your thoughts. You can reach us at wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. That's wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. Or if that's kind of like using the dark side of the force, I guess you could reach out to us on X at GeekcentricYT, which kind of feels more dark side. Or you can reach out to us on on Instagram at wearegeekcentric. Keep in mind, we have a ton of other great episodes covering the latest movies and TV shows, like our spoiler-free review for The Fall Guy, which is going to be in theaters as of Friday. So if you want to check that movie out, you might want to, hear what people are thinking and, what people have to say. And, us geeks, we had some great things to say. Kevin, Darcy, and Meg, they had glowing reviews about the movies. It's very positive. If you want to have a good time, you're going to want to see that movie. Plus, keeping with the theme of Star Wars, we are wrapping up our watch club for The Bad Batch Season 3. The series finale episode aired this week. We will be posting our spoiler-filled discussion for it this Friday, just before May the 4th, on May the 3rd. I know it's not as fun to say, but hey, it's on its way. But yes, we'll have that for you, so you can listen to us, and we'll be talking full spoilers about what went down in that final episode. Also, we got a ton of interviews available both here on podcast feeds and on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/geekcentric, and we actually have 2 interviews coming out this Saturday, May the 4th, to celebrate Star Wars Day with Diana Lee Inosanto and Meredith Salinger. We got Morgan Elsbeth and Barriss Offee on the Geekcentric podcast. We're going to be posting that on podcast feeds and on our YouTube channel, again, at youtube.com/geekcentric. You won't want to miss it. So consider to subscribe to us wherever you listen to podcasts. And hey, if you can, feel free to leave us a 5-star review. It really does help us. It shares the geek love. We got a lot more Star Wars stuff coming this year. We got a lot more MCU stuff coming this year. The summer of movies is beginning, so you don't want to miss it. But until then, Darcy, Nate, thank you so much for joining me for this spoiler-free review. And as we say,
May the 4th be with you. Love ya.
Laters.
Peace.